Okay, so we have a couple more people popping in, but because it's 12:01, I want to make sure we get started on time. So good afternoon. If we have not met, and there's Jim Hardy. Hi, I started the recording. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Alicia. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I already started the recording.
Okay.
And there's Glenn too. You're muted, Glenn.
I'm coming in to watch. I'm playing a non-speaking role in this afternoon session.
Okay, terrific. Well, if you have anything to add, by all means, go for it. Okay, so we have 12:02, so I think I'm ready to start. Jim, are you going to be watching the Q&A?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, so I will go ahead and give me 2 seconds. I'm going to share my screen. Oop, nope, we gotta go back out of that. Ta-da. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Alicia Mallon, and I am one of the field directors here at MASC. And today we're going to be talking about partnering with your PACs. So one of the things that brought me to school committee work was that I am a special education parent. My son has had an IEP since he started in preschool, and my daughter has had an IEP since middle school. Varying degrees of needing support, but SEPAC is what brought me to volunteering in the district, and then I ended up with school committee work. So I know the impact a SEPAC can have on districts. So today we're going to be talking about partnering with your PACs, what you can do to support your SEPACs and ELPACs, which are your English learner PACs. And in some districts, we're noticing that they are being called multilingual learner PACs. So we did include that here. So today we're going to cover what the school committee responsibilities are. We'll define SEPACs and ELPACs and at what point a district is supposed to have them. We'll talk about some questions of equity, things that are barriers to effective learning for students. And we can brainstorm some ways to support your PACs. And I do have some examples of some really great websites and some PACs that are being supported by their districts. Then we can talk about some resources, DESE resources, our resources, and what you can do beyond the PACs. And then we'll open it up for questions and comments, and we can hopefully share with you some really effective strategies to liaise with your PACs. So first up, your school committee roles. Anyone who's taken charting the course knows this by heart. It's you establish the district policies, and we want to make sure that those are equitable and that they provide the same level of access for all students. You also establish the budget. And I know there's a lot in the special education budget, especially that is out of district's control because of tuitions and things like that. But you do establish the budget and you do establish district priorities within the budget. You also confirm the superintendent's recommendation for special education director. This is one of those positions that school committees confirm the recommendation and cannot unduly withhold their approval of a qualified candidate. And then you advocate for students with special needs and English and multilingual learners. So what is a SEPAC? This is the MGL 71B, Section 3, and then there's also a CMR 603 that goes with it. Essentially, a SEPAC is a group of volunteers who are, their duties include, but are not limited to, advising the school committee, meeting regularly with school officials, that's usually your director of student services, and then educating the public on what students with special needs need. They also establish their own bylaws, they have officers, they are required to exist under MGL and be supported by the district. So an LPAC is slightly different. It has the same kind of charge as a CPAC, but ELPACs don't exist in every district. So ELPACs, sort of the tipping point for ELPACs to exist is school districts or charter schools operating a language acquisition program for 100 or more ELs, English learners, or 5% of the population of students, whichever is less. So if your 5% is still under 100, but you do have 5%, you are required to have an ELPAC. And then lastly, schools designated as underperforming or chronically underperforming and operate a program for English learners, they are required to have an ELPAC. So some of the questions of equity that students with special needs and English learners face. Family resources are not inherently equitable. And that doesn't just mean whether or not a family has money. That also means whether or not a family has time, whether or not a family has childcare for other students, other children in their families, so that they can focus on volunteering in a SEPAC or an ELPAC. The system also favors available and active parents, which is not to say that inactive parents cannot advocate for their children. It's just much easier for a parent who has a lot of bandwidth to be able to advocate for their students. If you decide to go down the road of professional advocacy, especially with IEPs, professional advocacy is very expensive. And there are some families who feel like they cannot get what they need for their students without it, but they just cannot afford it. We also want to make sure we avoid classification stigmas, especially when we're talking about things like budget and policy, budget especially, and especially when we're having tough budget years. It can be easy to start classifying the issues in your budget as being because of, and we want to avoid doing that. Minority students are also more likely to be labeled, and in hand with that is language barriers can impede access, especially for students who are English learners and also require intervention services. And then there's that teacher advice may not always be accepted. I know that evaluations and the evaluation process is very prescribed by the state, but not every family takes in the recommendations from the district, and some of them do disagree with them. So some of the ways you can support your PACs. So once a district has a PAC, and again, let's remember that they are volunteers only. So putting together a PAC can also sometimes be a struggle. You can support your PACs by holding meetings in person or virtually, by assisting them, generally with allowing them to use and access district buildings, district sort of Zoom accounts, things like that. You can send a school committee liaison to the PAC meetings, much like you would send someone to FinCom or to a wellness committee. You can send a school committee member to the PAC meetings and then come back and share what they found with the full school committee. This is one of my favorites. I was recently in Groton Dunstable and they do this. They have a SEPAC representative sitting at the table with them during their meetings as an ex officio participant. Now that means they don't get to vote. They don't get to go into executive session, but they sit at the table much like the students do, and they give feedback on the issues in front of the school committee. So shout out to Groton Dunstable for doing that. You can also invite the PACs to a school committee meeting to present on their activities. Much like you have departments come and present on what they've done throughout the year, inviting your PACs in to talk about the programming that they've put on, to talk about some of the outreach that they've done, to give feedback on their meetings on what their needs might be. That is a wonderful support for your PACs. So then as school committee members, you can also evaluate and create district policies that consider all students and families by soliciting input from the PACs. Generally, when your policies go up for public comment, if you have established a good relationship with your PAC, you can reach out to them and say, hey, we have this policy. We would like your feedback on it. You can also support the sharing of district information regarding PACs with the entire community. Some of the best things I've seen here is generally a superintendent will send out maybe a once a month update, but principals generally send once a week updates. And if the principals are including CPAC and ELPAC information on their meetings, on upcoming events, or just that they exist, just sharing their information on social media or websites, things like that, sharing that in the principal's email reaches everyone in the district. So then when you're putting together advisory committees, this is also a really good way to support your PACs. And I've seen this a lot recently with our superintendent searches, where they will have representatives from CPACs and ELPACs as part of, say, a screening committee. Or if you were going to do a naming committee, you would want to reach out. If you were going to put together a wellness committee, you would want to reach out. Including your PACs at the beginning of that process means that you don't have to circle back later and sort of scramble to get their input. So I have a couple of examples for you all of some great ways that districts are supporting their PACs. And this is not, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel here. This is Weymouth's district webpage, and very simply, they have included on it their CPAC. They have a list of links to schedules and meetings. They also have them translated, phenomenal. They have what the CPAC is and who should join it. This is a really great support from the district. No cost, because you already have your website and you can just share the information out. So this is an example of a district that shares their CPAC information on their site. This next one is a district that hosts their own site, but a CPAC that hosts their own site, but the district does share it out. And you can see they have a lot of information here. What is a CPAC? Who is a CPAC? The meeting calendar, helpful links. They also do really great updates on policies that are coming up, advocacy points, things like that. And when you have web pages like this, it's easy to share them out to the entire district, so the entire district can see what's going on. This is an example of an English Learner Advisory Council, the ELPAC, on the Quincy Public Schools website. What I really love about this page is the Quincy ELPAC has multiple social medias, and they've shared that here. And then they also include resources for families, which is phenomenal. They include the Massachusetts State Seal of Biliteracy, and they also talk about family liaisons within the district. And then lastly, the English Learner Parent Advisory Council for Worcester. I especially love the links on the side of this page. So they do share the ELPAC meetings and the times, lots of information there. But then along the right-hand side, they share a lot of links for families. And I think that is a phenomenal way to, again, not reinvent the wheel. You have the information, just put it all in one place. So I think that's a fantastic website. So some resources for you. DESE has 2 guidance documents that you can download, one for CPACs and one for ELPACs, and they explain start to finish how an ELPAC or a CPAC gets formed, how they go about starting up bylaws and things like that. They are a great resource, not just for the people who are going to do it, but also for the people who are supporting it. The Federation for Children with Special Needs and MassPAC are 2 absolutely phenomenal resources. And I just noticed a typo. The Federation has ELPAC guidance as well. So I will have to correct that later. I know. Okay. So beyond the PACs, what can you do to support your PACs sort of indirectly? A lot of what you can do to support the families that are supported by your PACs, you can advocate for higher state funding for special education and multilingual learners. You can advocate for relevant bills in the Massachusetts House and Senate, and your CPACs and ELPACs are actually really good resources for this as well, because a lot of them are paying attention to some of the bills that go before the legislature, and they can tell you which ones they, as parents, feel are the most effective. And then full funding for federal mandates. And I know, we always talk about funding and unfunded mandates, but advocating for, at both the state and federal level, full funding is one of the best ways you can support your PAC families. So here we will stop for questions. Are there any questions or comments popping up? I zoomed through that.
There's none in the Q&A, Alicia.
Okay. Well, we'll give it just a second. I know that there's a lot of really great things that PACs do that districts can also support them with. Weymouth, for example, does a transition fair, a college fair for students with special needs, where they are bringing in colleges and representatives from programs that are specifically targeted to students with special needs. They run a phenomenal program over there. There any other questions? Does anyone have any things that their district does that they think are really great ways that they support a SEPAC or an ELPAC?
Nothing showing up.
Okay, it's kind of a gray Friday. Well, while we wait to see if there are any other questions, I do want to go to our next slide very quickly because we have a bunch of stuff coming up. So upcoming MASC events, we have many charting the courses, and we have them, we're kind of bouncing all over the state trying to get some as close to our new members as possible. Monday is also our Day on the Hill. So when we're talking about advocacy, Day on the Hill is a fantastic time to meet with fellow school committee members, go up to the State House and meet with your representatives and, put a name to a face and personalize your advocacy. And then looking ahead, there's also a Division 9 resolutions clinic. It's a virtual clinic on May 8th. And all of these details can be found on our website. And then looking ahead, we have the Summer Institute in June and the joint conference in November. Nope, Summer Institute in July. I'm so sorry. Summer Institute in July and joint conference in November. So.
Oh, we have a question.
Oh, thank you.
ELPAC meetings in our district are not well communicated. One reason may be needing to promote, recruit in multiple languages. I am the ELPAC liaison. How can I support them when they don't have set meetings events?
So I think the best way to do that is, because an ELPAC is required by law, the district can set up a sort of a recruiting event. We see this a lot with SEPACs too. The district can set up a meeting for all interested parents. And I know that most of our emails now have that translate function on them. I would say reach out to ELPAC members and find out what languages they might need it translated into, and then have the district host a sort of just a meet and greet, find out what the ELPAC is about, and see if you can start recruiting some members there.
Okay, another question. I am from Weymouth, former SEPAC chair and now school committee liaison. I think this is a how can we involve more? She's adding SEPAC, ELPAC reps to hiring committees.
Yes, absolutely. So when a superintendent is looking for people to be on a hiring committee, which those are superintendent directed, that is part of their job description and their purview, asking them to reach out to the SEPACs and the ELPACs is important.
The next one up was, do you have a date and location for the July event? Yes, I do. It's Friday, July 12th, Saturday, July 13th. It starts, I think, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday and 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. It's in Marlborough at don't remember the name of the hotel, but it's right on Route 20. More information will be up on our website soon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Another question. Is it common to have SEPACs present at budget hearings, either in support or not for or not for specific programs?
Absolutely. So when you have a budget meeting, it's an opportunity for the public to weigh in on the budget. So at the budget hearing, a word of caution about that: if the CPAC is going to take an official position, you're going to want to check your bylaws to see whether or not the CPAC should be voting on what their official position is, because they do have bylaws. They're required to have bylaws. If it's just a parent who is also a CPAC member, they can absolutely advocate for their personal opinion, but make sure if it's the CPAC presenting themselves as a unified group, that they have voted on it as a unified group.
A little clarification from the comment about Weymouth. Danielle notes that including CPAC members on hiring committees is another example of what they are doing.
Thank you.
Wasn't a question, it was just one more example.
Thank you very much.
Next question, our CPAC is not having much luck expanding its membership. We promote the group in the meetings widely. Any suggestions?
So getting volunteers, as you all know, in any district for anything is really hard. We very often say that, special education parents are just trying to get from breakfast to bedtime without any major meltdowns. It's hard when someone is already doing so much extra to get them to then have the capacity to volunteer. I think holding meetings in ways that are more accessible. Virtual meetings mean you don't have to have anyone take care of your kids, especially if you have a higher needs student. You don't need to hire someone to take care of your kids. So having a virtual meeting, if you can have kid-friendly meetings in sort of kid-friendly spaces, like some of your libraries and school, things like that, that people can bring their kids along if they're little. And I think just continuing to push the information out in all of the ways that you can think. I've also seen a lot of CPACs recruit members at back to school nights, especially at the lower levels, because if you can catch a parent when they're in kindergarten, elementary school, before they're really busy, sometimes you can get more volunteers that way. So I think those are a lot of ways that you can enhance reaching out, but honestly, it's just persistence. I personally didn't become a member of my first CPAC until my kid was in the lower elementary school, and he went to the integrated preschool. So I knew it existed. It just didn't connect for me. So I think just keep trying.
I think something you mentioned before also, Alicia, is multiple languages.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Don't just send out your ELPAC information in multiple languages. Send out your CPAC information in multiple languages.
Let's see. Next question. Are there any AI tools, others are using to translate information meetings in real time?
I don't know of any AI tools. I've seen it done with multiple interpreters on the call, and that's definitely an extra cost. So if anyone else has some input there, please, by all means, share.
I know that if you're using virtual tools like Zoom, there is a CC function, like a closed caption function in Zoom that you can, the person attending the meeting can have the translation appear in a language they're comfortable with. So for example, if there was somebody on the Zoom call whose primary language was Portuguese, they could set it up so that on the screen in the closed caption, what I say would appear in Portuguese. That might mean you have to come up with a instruction component to walk somebody through that to be able to do that. But there are, other than doing virtual meetings, Zoom does have that component. I don't know if Google Meet does. I'm new to the Google platform, so to speak, but it may have that same feature.
And I would say reach out to whoever it is in your district that runs your virtual meetings. If your school committee is still allowing virtual, well, if your school committee is still having virtual meetings regularly, someone is running those. So reach out to them and see if they can help as well.
Let's see. You ask and they have come. More questions. Our CPAC sent a representative to all the back to school nights at the beginning of the year to get the word out and had a flyer with all the meeting dates. We found that we got a lot more new interest that way, especially to our fall meetings.
Yes, that's phenomenal. So one of the things to remember about CPACs is they are required at least once a year to hold, and the district must help them hold a basic rights workshop. So like an IEP 101, your basic rights in special education. And the district having to support them means that that is something that regularly happens in all districts. So if you can grab people for that one meeting that absolutely has to happen every year, that's a great way to get them involved.
Another really good suggestion from Rob. I think it's important to recruit older parents who have already raised their children to come to meetings to help guide younger parents.
Absolutely, Rob. And I think this is where the education to the community is important, because if you have a lot of parents who have already brought their kids through the system, but they still live in your city or your town, bringing them back is great. I had a fantastic mentor when I first started in the CPAC. And I think that there's a lot that you can share. Yes. So thank you for bringing that up.
And it's not a question, but just sharing. We have increased our attendance at all our ELPAC by sending out reminders via an all-call to EL parents. And we have also scheduled meetings in the morning so that parents can drop off their children and stay for the meeting.
I think that's a great idea. The meetings in the morning. I do want to remind everyone though, that we need to be very careful about not excluding working parents. Huge struggle for working parents who are also dealing with either language barriers or special needs children, things like that, that having the morning meeting is great. I love that. Make sure that you're still reaching out and putting other meetings at other times so that you can try and hit them in all the places. And I would suggest, if you have email addresses for those for your English language parents, send out not just the meeting reminder, but maybe a meeting recap for anyone who wasn't there so that they can re-engage with you on their time.
There are no more open questions.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, by all means, all of our contact information is on the on the MASC website. And you can reach out to us at any time with any questions you have. And we will be sending out both the recording of this meeting and the slides, that you can have the links and the resources that we have on there, and you're not squinting at a tiny screen for them. Oh, did I see someone had a hand up? Or were they just waving?
That's just a waving hand.
Okay, fantastic. Well,
it's one of those
the new emoji thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today, and have a great weekend. And we hope to see you all on Monday at Day on the Hill.